The ground trembles, not from an earthquake, but from the shifting plates of geopolitical power. In the shadows, a dangerous alliance solidifies, threatening to reshape the world order as we know it. The whispers of collaboration between Russia and North Korea have morphed into a chilling reality, a partnership forged in the crucible of mutual ambition and disregard for global stability. But this alliance has a hidden victim, an overlooked giant caught in the crossfire: China. What you are about to witness is a tale of betrayal, strategic miscalculation, and the very real possibility of a new Cold War erupting on the world stage. Buckle up, because the story of China, North Korea, and Russia is about to unfold into a dangerous power play, the implications of which may be devastating to the entire planet. This video is broken down into 7 key chapters, each designed to take a deeper dive into this complex geopolitical web. 1. The foundation of unease. 2. The betrayal unfolds. 3. China's economic tightrope. 4. The shadow of the Korean War. 5. China's strategic predicament. 6. The limits of power. 7. A shocking conclusion. Be sure to watch till the end, as the conclusion may surprise you. Chapter 1. The foundation of unease. The year 2024 has become synonymous with shifting allegiances and fragile alliances. The agreement between Russia and North Korea in June, a seemingly innocuous pact of mutual cooperation, detonated a seismic shift in global politics, particularly sending shockwaves throughout Asia-Pacific and Eastern Europe. This agreement was not just a treaty, it was the lighting of a fuse, setting in motion a series of events that would challenge China's established position. The relentless deepening of the Russia-North Korea bond, characterized by the accelerated exchange of weapons and technological expertise, immediately sparked international concern. South Korea and Ukraine voiced their outrage, fearing the repercussions of this emboldened axis. China, on the other hand, remained conspicuously silent, a posture that masked a growing anxiety. Instead of celebrating an alliance between perceived allies, it seems China was anything but comfortable with the new dynamic. China's silence was not a sign of approval, but a carefully constructed facade, concealing a turbulent internal calculation. This is not a typical scenario of nations acting in unison for common goals. Chapter 2. The betrayal unfolds. The situation deteriorated further when Kim Jong-un, leader of the North Korean regime, committed more than 11,000 troops to Russia's war in Ukraine. This was more than just military assistance. It was a blatant flaunting of China's tacit disapproval and a calculated move to solidify the Russia-North Korea alliance. The deployment of North Korean soldiers to the front lines was a highly provocative act, a deliberate challenge to the established global balance, and further inflamed the already volatile global geopolitical scene. The ramifications for China were immense, both on the eastern and western fronts. This wasn't simply a matter of one nation supporting another. It was a profound breach of trust and a deliberate attempt to undermine China's standing in the world order. For China, the North Korean and Russian alliance was more than just a headache. It was a direct assault on its authority in Asia and on its position within the global sphere. The world watched as the supposed united front between China, North Korea, and Russia started to splinter in spectacular fashion, revealing cracks that had long been hidden from public view. Chapter 3. China's economic tightrope. The veneer of cooperation was a carefully constructed lie, and the Chinese government became increasingly aware that it was quickly losing control, not just in the Asian region, but in the Eastern Bloc as a whole. China, having recently suffered a series of economic setbacks and a tightening grip of Western sanctions, was deeply vulnerable to the repercussions of the Moscow-Pyongyang alliance, especially when it has been considered that all 3 nations have been presented as being on the same side against NATO and EU. The alliance was not a boon, but rather a financial risk, directly impacting China's already strained economic position. The military actions of Putin and Kim essentially turned China into an economic target for the West, further alienating them from crucial Western partners like the United States, Japan, and South Korea. China, caught between an aggressive North Korea and a resurgent Russia, found itself increasingly isolated, its economic prospects jeopardized by the very alliance it had been expected to support. The notion of a united front against the West evaporated, leaving China to navigate a complex geopolitical landscape filled with economic and political peril. The game of nations was no longer a simple three-way partnership. It was rapidly descending into a chaotic brawl for strategic survival. Chapter 4. The Shadow of the Korean War. China's current predicament is eerily reminiscent of the Korean War, when Mao Zedong faced a similar betrayal. During the Korean War, Mao had no intentions of getting involved. His goal was Taiwan, not the Korean peninsula. Kim Il-sung, father of Kim Jong-un, also secretly planned his war without letting Mao know. Only when the US forces showed strength did China get involved in the war, as a direct consequence of Kim's ambitions. History seems to be repeating itself, with Kim Jong-un mirroring his grandfather's actions, placing his ambitions above China's interests, much to Beijing's dismay. This pattern of betrayal and disregard has been a rude awakening for China, forcing them to confront a historical truth. North Korea will always prioritize its own survival, even at the expense of its supposed allies. The parallels between these two historical moments are undeniable, and they suggest that the current tensions are not merely a temporary spat, but a product of deep-seated distrust and conflicting ambitions. The ghosts of the past have seemingly returned to haunt China's present, leaving it in a state of confusion and uncertainty in the face of the current political scenario. Chapter 5. China's Strategic Predicament. What is particularly shocking is that China's response to North Korea and Russia has been extremely passive, given China's strategic position in this political theater. Unlike Mao's era, China today doesn't need Russia's permission to make decisions. The past revolutionary ties are gone. Putin's actions in Ukraine have made Russia a junior partner, and North Korea is economically dependent on China. North Korea relies on China for 90% of its trade, and it is a country deeply dependent on China for most of its energy. China holds immense economic leverage over Pyongyang, being its largest trading partner, accounting for 98% of North Korea's total imports and exports in 2023. This means that Beijing possesses the capability to influence and economically control Pyongyang, which is struggling under international sanctions and food shortages. With this in mind, it is shocking that Kim Jong-un still favors Putin over Xi Jinping, putting China in an awkward position, forcing it to consider the possibility of losing its position in the region. China's unwillingness to act forcefully in this situation, despite its dominant position, is a perplexing mystery, which is a very interesting topic for political analysis. Chapter 6. The Limits of Power. China's priorities are complex, involving both stability and denuclearization on the Korean peninsula. China does not approve of the North Korean nuclear program, but it is also not willing to give up its influence in the region. At the same time, China does not want a conflict in the region that would destabilize China's security. Therefore, it maintains a delicate balance by helping North Korea, while pretending not to be doing so. China's strategic calculation is based on the notion of creating a political buffer, and in this scenario, North Korea is a very important pawn, as it is the only buffer between China and the US allied South Korea. North Korea is the main beneficiary of this equation, as it leans more on Putin but is dependent on China, who, by many estimations, sees Pyongyang as more of a burden than an ally. China faces a dilemma of its own creation. It wants to control North Korea, but it is also wary of antagonizing it, fearing that it will move further into Russia's sphere of influence. Ultimately, China's power has limitations, with its authority increasingly being undermined by an alliance it had not anticipated, nor seemed to be able to control. Chapter 7. A shocking conclusion. The path ahead is riddled with uncertainty. While China's 1961 military alliance with North Korea remains in force, Beijing has been very careful to not mention North Korea as an ally, and has not publicly referred to it as such. The military support has also gradually diminished as North Korea has aligned more with Russia, signaling a potential shift in China's strategic calculations. China is also struggling to deal with the flow of refugees from North Korea. The current situation is forcing China to take the lessons from the past Korean War, when it had to help North Korea out of a situation where Kim Il-sung's actions put the country in a critical state. However, China's reluctance to use its power in a more assertive manner reveals a diplomatic timidity that might prove very dangerous in the long run. The current situation has seen China passively responding to the growing power of Russia and North Korea, a posture that many analysts believe to be self-defeating. But here is where it gets shocking. In a shocking twist, recent intelligence reports suggest that China's passivity is not about weakness, but is a carefully calculated move. China is quietly preparing a massive strategic shift. This is not about losing control, it's about allowing North Korea to entangle itself completely with Russia, allowing China to then use this to its advantage, either through economic warfare or an outright military operation, leaving North Korea completely isolated and defenseless. The stage is set for a major power play, and the world will soon see if China has played its hand correctly. The real game may be just about to begin. Otro. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the intricate web of geopolitics. Be sure to subscribe for more insightful analysis. This situation is developing daily, so expect an update very soon.